Hello and welcome to the Bellefleur Tire Shop Grand Falls Rapids pregame show. Tyler Raines with you as always, and there is a little bit of exciting / not so exciting news to break down today if you haven't already heard. The Grand Falls Rapids, as of Saturday night with their loss to the Miramichi Timberwolves, have been eliminated from playoff contention, meaning the Timberwolves have clinched the playoffs, and there is no longer a possibility of the Grand Falls Rapids being able to make the playoffs and catch up to the Timberwolves in that process. So with that being said, this is going to be an opportunity, and I know a lot of people are frustrated. I've talked to a lot of you over the last couple of days and got your thoughts, got your opinions. And yes, there is quite a bit of frustration, but you have to look at it from this point of view. Yes, they may not have made the playoffs, but on the bright side, there's two things that could happen. You're getting a look at some of the younger guys who are coming in and that haven't really been seen a whole lot this season so far. But you also have a chance of that first overall pick as well in the draft this year. So we're gonna talk all about that in the upcoming minutes here. But first, I want to dive into the stats and storylines for this game, and that's the Grand Falls Rapids taking on the Fredericton Red Wings. I think for the last time this season, if I'm not mistaken, the rivalry in the division rival season series is 3-2-0 in favor of the Fredericton Red Wings. And the Red Wings, it has been no secret, they've been struggling a lot. They are the second last place team in the league, right next to the Valley Wildcats, dead last, bottom of the East Link North Division, 10-27-1-2, and they are 3-6-0-1 in their last 10 games. This is where stats start to get a little bit interesting because the power play percentage, they rank third place amongst teams in the East Lake North Division with a 22.6% on the power play, only trailing the West Kent Steamers and Edmundston Blizzard in that department. Their penalty kill, on the other hand, bottom of the division at 71.3%. Goals for and goals against, they've got 122 goals for, 200 goals against on the dot, which, yes, this is a real stat. They have a goal differential of -78. You heard me right, and that's not a made-up stat. That is an actual stat that the Red Wings are being outscored. They've been outscored by 78 goals. The Grand Falls Rapids, on the other hand, 9-24-2-6. They're 0-8-0-1 in their last 10 games. Their special teams, on the other hand, have struggled significantly. Dead last power play in the East Lake North Division at 16.2%, and the fifth place in the division at 77.1% on the penalty kill. Their goals for 132, goals against 180, for a goal differential of -48. So still not amazing. It's 30 goals less than Fredericton has, but you know, you want to try and keep that in the positives. Obvious reasons there. Now, what does this mean for the Grand Falls Rapids for the rest of the season? Now, obviously, with the news coming that the Rapids can no longer contend for the playoffs, there becomes discussion of what happens now. Do you just ride out the rest of the year and try and finish as high as possible? Or do you try and race to the bottom for that first overall pick? Now, logic would have it that, yeah, you want to try and get the pick as much as possible, but in my eyes, I think you want to try and finish as strong as you can, because you're going to have players, a lot of this core, right? A lot of this Rapids core is going to be the same core that we're going to see next season, with the exception of a few overagers that we're going to be losing. This is one that it's going to be difficult to predict how next season's going to go, but the end of this season, you're going to get to see a real taste of what these young players can do that are going to be in the lineup, and leading the charge for next season, I should say. So obviously, Jonah Laird is the captain of this Rapids team. He's sticking around, of course, but you're going to be missing guys like Paul Slivka, like Will Morrison, like Matthew Martel. There's going to be a lot of players who are aging out on this team, and it gives a good opportunity for a lot of the Rapids prospects to come up and start to make a little bit of an impact. So what I'm going to do here, we're going to talk a little bit about in the system and what to look forward to in terms of the Rapids prospects. I've compiled a list of the top 10 Rapids prospects within the system right now, and we're going to go through this one by one here, starting off with the number 10 spot in Ian Lovett. Now, Ian Lovett was drafted in the second round in 2024, currently plays for Rothsay High School in Nova Scotia, where he has 11 points in 14 games, 7 of those goals, 4 assists. Now, he's a guy who's a little bit more on the interesting side because he's a speedster, but he's not a super big scorer. That's something that the Rapids have kind of struggled with, getting that extra depth. I feel like he's not going to be a top 6 superstar, but he's a guy who could come in and provide that extra little bit of depth to the lineup, and that's something that they're missing. We're going to talk a little bit more about that after. Number 9, we've got Aiden McCullough. Usually, do you really count him as a prospect because he's played in the league before? But in this case, I am. And he was acquired from the Edmonton Blizzard in the trade that sent Jeremy Dastu and Raphael Denis to the Blizzard, and sent Aiden McCullough as well as other assets to the Rapids. Was drafted 22nd overall in 2023. That is a second round. And is currently playing with the Cape Breton Eagles. 23 games played, no goals, 1 point. But we talked a little bit about him in the breakdown for the trade deadline, that it's not necessarily his offensive skills that really draw people in. It's his defensive game. I think he is going to be a huge asset for the Blue Line should he make the team next year. Next one at number 8 is Luke Moray. He was drafted 4th overall in 2023. Defenseman out of the Moncton Flyers U18 program, 13 games played, 1 goal, 2 assists for 3 points. Again, a guy who is another solid shutdown defenseman, and I think is going to be a huge problem should he make this team coming up next season. Cameron Miller is a guy who we've started to see a little bit more of, 72nd overall in this past draft in the 2024 year. 31 games played with the Northern Moose, 15 goals and 9 assists for 24 points. We've seen a little bit of what he can do over the past 3 games. He's played 3 games for the Grand Falls Rapids this year, and most recently 2 games where he got into the lineup. And I've started to really like what I've seen from him, because he's a guy who pushes hard, gets into the corners, isn't afraid to do the dirty deeds, so to speak, and really get into those areas that not a lot of people want to go. He's a very gritty forward too. He's not allowed. He's not afraid to throw the body around and dive in to get those pucks first. His defense could use a little work, but that's, again, all part of the process. Cameron Miller is one of those guys that you want in your bottom 6, because he's going to be one of those guys that's going to make the other teams work a little extra hard to get the puck to the offensive zone and generate those scoring chances. But good defense starts with a good offense. Number 6, we've got Scott LeBlanc. He was drafted 90th overall in 2023, playing for the St. John Vitoes. 18 games played, 10-8-0 with a 386 goals against and a 900 save percentage. Now, this has been a topic that some people have actually brought up is, Adam LaCour, he is 19. He won't be around forever, right? I believe next year is going to be the year he ages out. I could be wrong on that, but you want to start to look to the future and who you're going to get, because Loic Nadeau is a solid option, and I think he's going to end up taking over as the starter someday. That is a given. But to have a solid backup option just in case one of them goes down, Scott LeBlanc is a fantastic option there. We saw him in training camp. We saw what he can do. He's a very athletic goalie, likes to get down, and is, again, not afraid to be aggressive in front of the net. That's something that you don't see a whole lot of goalies doing nowadays, is clearing out the crease. What do I mean by that is the fact that if somebody's in your way, he's not afraid to push him out of the way and get him out of the crease. Not afraid to clear the crease. So very aggressive, but also at the same time, very athletic. I really liked what I saw from him, some of the key saves that he made in training camp. And I'm excited to see what he's going to be able to do coming up in the offseason here. Declan Kennedy at number 5. So he was drafted 16th overall in 2023, playing for the Pinnacle Growlers currently. 8 goals and 26 assists for 34 points. Now, Declan Kennedy, we saw him in the lineup in the preseason, and he is a fantastic playmaker. Something that the Rapids are definitely going to need next season because they're losing, obviously, a lot of talent. And you're going to need somebody to replace that production value in Caleb McDonald, right? Because you have Nathan Plamondon-Michaud, who's probably going to be playing on that first line with Jonah Laird. But at the same time, you're going to need somebody to come in and be that playmaker. I think that he could be a good playmaker there as well. Then you have number 4, Caleb Sear. He was drafted in the second round in 2024 as well. Plays for the Moncton Flyers U18 program as well. 28 games, 21 points, and he is a puck-moving defenseman. So I think that's going to be a key here as well, is when Will Morrison ages out, because there is only going to be 5 or 4 usable defensemen that are regulars in the lineup. When Morrison does eventually age out at the end of the season, he's going to be a very good, solid option. He's a solid puck-moving defenseman and a guy who can kickstart the power play. A good majority of his points with the Moncton Flyers were actually scored either on the power play or the penalty kill, which is fantastic. That's something they need. We're going to talk a little bit more about what this team needs as well. But we're going to go to number 3, Jacob Hartland. Plays for the Halifax McDonald's this season, drafted 26 overall in 2024, and played 31 games, 24 goals, 23 assists for 47 points. Now, on the topic of this, we are looking at a guy who is both a very good playmaker and a very good goal scorer, something that we haven't seen so far since, really someone that we haven't seen since Jonah Laird, and having another player who's just like that you can use in the middle 6, someone who you can use on the second and third line who's a big scorer, I think could really help. Number 2, Zachary Michaud. At 2023, he was drafted 28th overall, playing for Stansted College varsity, where he's got 78 points in 41 games, 21 goals, and 57 assists. Another classic case of he's a fantastic playmaker, but he can also score goals. Self-explanatory. He can be fantastic in the lineup. And last year's second overall pick at number 1, Jackson Summers, who is currently playing for the Moncton Flyers. Again, 29 games played, 13 goals, 19 assists for 32 points. He's over a point per game. And what you're getting with him is a guy who's, again, not afraid to dive in puck first. He's an excellent penalty killer. He's a guy who is fantastic to have on the special teams, and that's something that you want to look forward to. So why are we going through the prospects list? Now, as we know, the season's coming to an end in about a month. After that's going to be the draft. Now, looking at the additions that new GM Mathieu Martin, he added quite a few names, quite a few bits of talents, but with that, you also have a good amount of prospects in the system that you can build for the future on. Now, why I'm taking a look at the top 10 prospects in the system is to give you a little bit of an idea, once these guys age out, who you could expect to see potentially in the lineup. Now, those are some of the most interesting names on that list. If I was able to find any sort of video footage, I would definitely would have shown it, but unfortunately, it's not as accessible as it once was. But there is going to be a lot of good talent, plus the draft picks that are coming up in the 2025 draft at the end of the season coming too. That's just not counting them as well. There's going to be a lot of good talent in this draft. And though they're probably not going to be an impact player right away, keep in mind these guys, most of these players are 16 or 17 years old. So coming onto a team and making it right out of the gate is going to be very difficult. But these are all guys who we've seen in training camp, some of who were the last cuts. Jackson Summers, we've yet to see him in training camp yet. I'm hoping that he's going to be there. But a lot of these guys like Zachary Michaud, Declan Kennedy, Cameron Miller, we saw these guys in training camp last year. They looked very good. And at times where there are injuries, they've been called up. And sometimes they play, sometimes they don't. But I like the fact that the Rapids are doing a great job at drafting and making sure that their future in terms of the prospects is very, very bright. Now, what I think the Rapids need to do, we're going to talk a little bit about what they need to get into to win this game. Fredericton, okay? This is a game where you want to win for nothing else than just, it's a division rival season series. do everything you can to get this back, tie it up. Maybe if you've got one more game, win in Fredericton and just prove that you're the better team between the two of them. It's essentially what this game is. It's going to be a game of bragging rights. And honestly, I think that there's a pretty good shot. But this is, it's essentially a bottom of two last place teams that are I think it's gonna be an entertaining game regardless. Now, just because, and I want to stress this so much because there's such a good point to be made here. Just because the Rapids are out of the playoffs doesn't mean that there's not going to be good hockey going on. And especially with Fredericton coming to town, this is a team that we've watched all year. These two teams just dominating each other, beating the heck out of each other. We've saw them with high scoring games. We've seen them with shootouts, though I'm pretty sure we'd all like to forget about the shootout. But there has been the entertainment value of those games every single time these two teams have played each other. And that's what I think makes this so good, and what makes these games, these last few games of the season, so worth watching is because, yes, they may not be able to make the playoffs, but you're going to get to see some good quality hockey as it stands. Anyway, so that's going to be a really exciting opportunity, I think. So, and you know what, just because the Rapids are not in the playoffs right now, there's still 7 home games left during the regular season, and there's 11 games left total in the regular season, but 7 of them are home games. And this is a time where you really get to see the young guns start to shine out bright, and you're really going to start to appreciate some of the overage players who are aging out there playing their last few games. And I have no doubt that these guys are going to play their hearts out. It's going to be so fun to watch these last few games. I'm very excited to see how this team finishes off and what the next steps are going into the draft. It's obviously going to be quite a few draft picks that the Rapids do have. And building for the future is really where it's at. So this season is not completely done yet. There's still lots of hockey to be played, and there's still lots of time to establish these players, who is going to be your core for next year, and how you're going to start to build around that core in the offseason. So with that being said, we will see you back here for the post-game show, where we are going to be doing a lot of breakdown on this game, and we're going to talk about everything that happened right here live on the Bellefleur Tire Shop Grand Falls Rapids post-game show. Stay tuned, and we will talk to you very soon.